Welcome back to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. I'm excited for this one today. We've got a 16-year professional basketball player, former Portland State guard. He has the Guinness Book of World Records for most threes consecutively made in 177 games. That's even better than our own Steph Curry here in the Bay Area. Jeb Ivey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm so excited to kind of dive in. You're our first international player that we have as far as playing overseas. So I definitely want to talk about your career, but let's first talk a little bit about some of the places that you've played.
Overseas in Europe?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, man, 2003, my goal from a kid was to play as a professional.
Yeah.
And so since I finished Portland State at 2003, I moved to Iceland from making nothing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
And so I took a job making barely any money in the northernmost city that hosted a professional team in the world, in a town called Ísafjörður, Iceland.
Wow.
So isolated from any other city in Iceland, which is already isolated.
And what's the weather like in Iceland? Because I feel like it's more green than anything.
So that's the spin. Yes,
Okay.
it is not just icy when you get there.
Right.
Yeah, it's green. It's colorful. But then as you get more towards the middle of the country, you hit the glaciers and everything. But yeah, it's actually not as cold as people would think. Really windy, windy as anything you probably have ever felt. Like wind that hits your face and it makes you cry immediately. And wind that's blowing everything sideways. Rain's going sideways. Even my wife, as a bet one night, I bet she couldn't make it to the other side of the street and back to our staircase, and she didn't. I had to go get her because it was so windy. But Iceland was a fantastic place. Started and finished my career there. So
wow.
But was in a very isolated town my first year, and was kind of asking like, gosh, is this what I really want to be doing? But
sure.
Yeah.
And then you work your way up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What was the next stop?
So I was there for 4 years. I did some great things there, and then was able to get to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Had to change agents and gain a couple more contacts. Got to Germany and spent 2 years there, 2 great years there, and then of another situation, changed my agent again. Had a different agent for every country I was in.
Really? And so for people that may not know, what's the reasoning on changing agents? I know it does happen, a lot in the NBA, but what would be the reasoning for you to change?
The reason I changed from Harry Brown was my first agent, HB Sports. The last I checked, it was still going, but it was a few years ago. But Harry Brown, his market, I didn't feel as though he was comfortable because I was getting paid in a spot where he was also making money. So when that happens,
Sure.
Agents tend to, no offense, I love them, but they tend to get lazy and they tend to get comfortable and worry about the other players that don't have jobs.
Right.
And so, once you start playing in a league, you start to play for everybody in that league, other coaches, other programs, other, fans. And so some other teams might like you and you end up staying in the country for longer than you intend to.
Right.
So I wanted to try something new. Harry was kind of giving me that runaround.
Yeah, and that's a lot like any relationship, right?
Yeah.
If you're not reciprocating the value both ways, what are you really bringing to the table? So
exactly. So I branched out and was able to get to Germany and spent 2 great years there. Then actually had to change agents for different reasons because the agent I had in Germany, Kim Rasmussen, great man, still talk to him. It was still a good relationship with him, but he ran into some personal issues in his life.
Sure.
So he had to basically put that career of being an agent on hold. And so I was scrambling. My wife was pregnant, and we didn't know. There was a big question mark that year in 2009. So once again, through some contacts, get in touch with Casey Calero, and he has been with him almost ever since, but had a great relationship with him. He got me to Finland the next
Wow.
4 years. Spent 4 more years in Finland, and kind of like you just mentioned a few minutes ago, just worked my way up wherever I was, tried to do the best I could, tried to attack the people that were the favorites in that league,
Yeah.
trying to, win with whatever team and I had and wherever we were.
Yeah.
That was that for Finland. And then I changed my agent again when I went to France
Wow.
because you had to be licensed
Oh,
to be an agent in France.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so certain places have certain rules, so.
Wow. So, I mean, you played in all those places and then you were coming back every summer back to the States. So, what was that transition like? I can only imagine, we're all in quarantine right now. So, you know, coming out of that, you feel like, whoa, this is a whole new, once they start opening things, it's like, whoa, we can go back here, we can go back here. And now you're back in the States coming from, all these different countries. Tell me about that process.
Well, each summer it was like we definitely didn't think of it like we do now. We knew we were lucky to be able to come home and see family and take that time to kind of, um, we traditionally would bounce around between Oregon and California,
Yeah.
visiting family here and there, and that was amazing for our kids to get to in front of other families' eyes and just build family relationships outside of our immediate, because we were just always together
Yeah.
over in Europe. But now it's definitely a different twist on it, especially with the quarantine. But coming back overall was great. All those years, it was quick. We were always ended up going back to Europe faster than we wanted, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But coming back now, the transition back has just been a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah.
And for anybody that I think has put years to something that they love, and then make a change in their lifestyle or onto something new, kind of probably understands what that means.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell me about raising a family overseas and then coming back and forth. That's got to be really difficult, and especially you did it for 16 years, and you've got beautiful kids now. But tell me about that process, especially when they were younger.
I appreciate that. Thank you. They're keepers, I'll say. But the thing that started making when we started to have a children with Jackson first, it was easy. It was easy. There was no, I mean, one child. The lifestyle we were living, our responsibilities at the time. It was it was a blessing to be able to have and spend that much time with our child. And
Right.
so we just knew we were lucky. Then a few years later, we decided to have Bay, our second, and Balin just in general flipped everything upside down for us.
Right.
He was completely opposite than Jackson, and bouncing out two schedules with then our responsibilities overseas, kind of gave us more on our plates, but still very able to handle. And the thing I will say that really presented not like an issue, but definitely a lot more work going into each season and each deal I would take was when Jackson started school. And
Huh.
over there, you can start in Europe, you can start school, specifically France, where we were, you can start school at the age of 3, as long as
Yeah.
you're potty trained. And they
Okay.
break kindergarten down in the 3 years, which was a great plan that I liked. So um, once we had to start worrying about schools, child child care, all extra things outside of Whitney and myself,
Yeah.
then it started the plate started to get even more full. And then as they got older and more responsibilities, and then we even had a third one, it was like this is probably a good time. After 16
Yeah.
years,
Good
it
time
were
to hang it
probably
up.
at a good time. There was other things going on, but
For
uh, it,
sure.
it but it was a blessing having them over there. We was able to give them so much of us, which, as you know, in your journey is so important to, I think, the development of our children. So,
Sure.
um, but yeah.
Wow, I couldn't even imagine. It's hard enough to do it, being here, but being abroad and having your kids intertwined in a whole new culture, it had to be difficult. But I think it's really going to help them in the long run. Jackson and Bay, like you mentioned, because they got to see a whole different side of things at an early age, and they've just been exposed to so many different things. Um, to that point, a lot of people may not know about European basketball, being a professional basketball player in Europe. There's a lot of misconceptions with it. Can you talk about some of those things that people might not know?
I think I a lot of people say they love the game, and you can,
Yeah.
and what I'm about to go into is not me taking away anybody's love or anybody's feeling as though they've given everything they can to the game, but there's just different levels, right, of
Yeah.
everything that comes in different perspectives. And from my perspective, playing playing professional basketball in Europe is not. I've seen it. I played with teammates that couldn't do it, and they had to go home. But it's not for everybody. And there's a lot of um, there's a lot of great things you can do with it, learn from it, help other people. But really, it comes down to the person and what they're really after and what they're really able to, what they want to go through to get what they're after. And so it's just a completely different pace for us Americans,
Right.
specifically, and then specifically college student athletes,
Yeah.
the speed at which they live, going
Right.
from that to a completely different pace in an isolated town of maybe 1,000 or two, depending on where they go, to now they're having their own responsibility to get adjusted to the time, get adjusted to the language, get adjusted to where their house is and the logistics, where the stores are, getting adjusted to figuring out what's chicken and what's not chicken,
Yeah.
getting adjusted to, getting yourself up with enough time to get yourself ready in a professional manner to go to just a morning practice and go in there and be the best and put in work and set the example that everybody wants to be.
Right.
There's so much responsibility on and off the court, and then that's just your, into your morning, and now you have evening practice and what you're doing between practices, and 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 a lot of people are able to do it really well, where they're able to balance all of that and go enjoy Europe.
Right.
But that takes a lot of preparation and effort. And because really, why are you over there? Why was I over there? I was over there to play basketball, so I was going to give myself the best chance to do that at the highest level every day and for as long as I could. uh,
Right.
so
The thing that resonates with me, one of my mentors talks about, do you like it, love it, or are you passionate about it? And you're clearly passionate about it. And I think that's what you're trying to tell people is like, you really have to be passionate to go to another country where the culture is completely different than what you grew up in, even from the college experience, being a Division I athlete. You have all these resources that people might not have, even at the lower Division 1s or Division 2s. And then you go overseas and then you see this whole new walk of life. 2 practices a day, morning session, evening session. It's just a lot. How did you maintain your body and not have any major injuries, or did you have any major injuries during that time?
I was very lucky. I knock on a little bit of wood, like, over those years. I never, I don't know what the secret, everybody's body's different, but I will say that uh, taking too much time off is not good for anybody, even in any line of work.
Sure.
It's great. You gotta, Jerry Rice, great example, right?
Yeah.
One the best ever, arguably, I think. But he took a week off, every single season. How long did he play?
20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's still doing those runs, but
Right.
that's probably for different reasons. But the point is you I've seen two people step, too far away from the game, thinking it's just going to come back. And it usually does. The younger you are, you're in those 20s, it's going to come back quicker. But as you get into those late 20s and early 30s, it's something that, you can't do anymore. And I never really took time off. Even when I was taking time off, I was still training. Just in a fun way. So I wasn't thinking of it like training, doing different sports and different activities like swimming and tennis, great workouts. But never, plus, you said passion,
Yeah.
and it resonated with me. And it is passion. It's like passion slash, and the other word I put in there is obsession. You got to be
Ooh,
like
that's the
absolutely
one.
obsessed. You got to be
Yeah.
obsessed with whatever you do. And the people that I've trained, coached, played with, played for, we've talked about this, and it doesn't have to be basketball. It could be, you could be obsessed with the way you keep your house, or how you wash a dish. You could be obsessed with whatever line of work you're in. And that's key, though. That's
Yeah.
key. Get obsessed with it.
Yeah, we were in our pre-call. We talked about Kobe. We talked about Michael Jordan, that is, and we talked about that, some of that obsession, right? You kind of have to be obsessed with that process. And now that you are no longer playing, you had this singular goal for so long. What has it been like for you? This is your first year not playing, professionally. How is that process stepping away from that? Because a lot of people see it when they retire from something, but you're still pretty young. I know you'll be turning 40 this year, right?
Yep.
That's still a young man, and you still have so much of your life to still live. But this is a big piece that has been there, since you were 10, 11 years old. So tell me about that transition moving on from hooping.
Chris, it's been hard. It's been hard. And I think there, well, I'll just start by saying there has been so many things about the transition that I never considered would be there. I've never considered, I always thought when I was done, I was going to be a little bit like tired, and I'm not going to really want to work out anymore. Like I'll definitely take some days. Like, why would I go back to the gym so
Right.
fast? That type of stuff. What am I going to need to really work on my game for? And don't get me wrong. I got to a point where I knew I was going to retire. I did it on my own terms. I didn't do it because of an injury or anything like that. So I'm lucky for that. But I did it on my own terms, which in a way signifies like I had a little bit left in the tank. Like,
Yeah.
like I know that. But I was very comfortable with the decision. But the habit of life, like the daily habit of the way I lived and prepared for the last 16 years, I realized, and it took me months for this realization. I'm even figuring stuff out still, but it took me like that switch just doesn't go off.
Right.
And so my anxiety that hits me in the morning and stress that hits me in the morning and leaves me in those feelings like, oh, I didn't do anything today, or what's going on. I had to readdress all of that
Right.
I have to on a daily basis. And so what are we? I am about a year removed from finishing my last game, and I am probably just now figuring out a great routine in the last month or two,
Right.
during this whole COVID thing. And that wasn't a plan or anything. It just kind of happened where things kind of became clear and I was able to settle in. But it's just taken a long time. And for anybody who has gone through it, or was going to go through it, I wish I was, in my early 20s, mid 20s again, just playing, and maybe paid more attention to when I heard people talking about things like that.
Wow.
Maybe it would have helped. I don't know. But
Yeah. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning with Vince Carter. So Vince Carter is in his last season, and he was telling a story about how he wasn't playing much. He was just he was on the Atlanta Hawks, and the whole COVID thing came out. Rudy Gobert, blah blah blah, and they're saying, "Hey, this might be the last game of the season." And somebody from the PR department says, "Yeah, you might want to go in because this is probably going to be your last game." So he comes in, he hits his last shot. But he wasn't prepared at that moment for it to be his last game. He had to go to Toronto. They still had more games to play. And so he's coming to grips with that. And he had talked to Kobe before his untimely passing. And he talked to Dirk. He just talked about that whole process because he just didn't know. So he's tried to find other things that he's passionate about. One is golf. So he's been golfing quite a lot. and he golfs every single day, and that's his new thing. So that's going to be his new routine. He's going to be obsessed with that part of his life. And so that brings me to the question, what do you want to do next, and where do you see yourself after playing such a long career? Because integrating yourself back into this, I guess, real world, I guess it's not really that real right now with the whole COVID stuff, but integrating yourself has got to be a tough transition.
Definitely, it has been. There's so many question marks about my next step, even when sometimes it looks really clear what opportunities might be. I tried going back a little bit. I thought what at the time was a pretty decent job of sort of planning for this.
Mm-hmm.
I played with some people, not with some people, but know of some people that they played for pretty 10, 11 years, and they slid really nicely into a nice job that was waiting for them as like something from a previous contact or a previous school or something like that. And so
Right.
that's nice. And I tried. Everything's different. Everybody's situation is different, but I tried to prepare. But things just didn't turn out the way obviously we would have liked. But so now, I'm kind of in a situation where, there are question marks about the next step, but I do know that if I was lucky enough to have an opportunity at it, I would love to coach and teach the game of basketball.
Well, wherever you end up, they're going to get a terrific coach. I mean, you can't get that experience just anywhere. And you're a student
Appreciate
of the
that.
game. You know the game well. You train a lot of really, really high. Well, they're not high level, but you help them get to that level as far as the kids that you train and the kids that you coach. So um, you're going to have a great job, and you're going to do really good work wherever you land. Um, so let's take it backwards a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and your childhood.
Um, Born in San Jose, and I think it was pretty unique right off the bat. Mom and dad split up,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was with my mom for the next 8, 9 years, or a little bit longer than that. But and traveling across the country as a young kid to visit my father.
Right.
Um,
And you got a
and
couple. You got a couple unique stories with that, right? At an
yeah,
early age, you were going uh,
yes,
over the border to see your father and stuff.
yeah. So I didn't really think about it at the time until I started to become a father myself. But I was about 5, 6, 7, maybe 6, 7, 8, and I was traveling to the first like year and a half. I was traveling to Toronto,
Yeah.
and then I was traveling to Florida. And my
Like,
father was doing some coaching out in Toronto, and then out in Florida. And so at the time, you put your child on the plane and entrusted their lives to the stewardess and
I couldn't
and
even
and
imagine.
and transferring your child gates to get to the final destination. But that's unheard of nowadays. But back
Yeah.
then, that's what I was doing. So it was pretty wild, pretty sort of cool to look back on that experience. Definitely, kind of like you're saying, with my own kids, going through some stuff that you might not have really realized or appreciated until later. But that was one of them. Um, and then Papa Joe, my mom remarried Joe Quilici. He has become Papa Joe in my family. He played probably the biggest role in my life.
Wow.
Um, you know, Other than a couple other people, but Papa Joe was everything for me, everything. And without him, I wouldn't be playing basketball. I wouldn't probably even know or really consider what the game was.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
I know your dad, Papa Joe. He's a great man. Just loves people and loves the game of basketball. I coach against him now at St. Francis, so I see him twice a year. His teams are always prepared, and he's always, he's one of those guys that is obsessed with the game, and you can just tell. And he loves his kids, he loves his daughters, and he loves you, but he just has a great heart. He'll give anybody a big hug, and this big large guy, but he's a really good he's a really good dude. And as big as he is, you wouldn't think he was so sensitive. But but that's a good thing. That sensitivity
Totally.
allows you to
Tell
be
him.
vulnerable. And, I just have so much appreciation for him, just like you do. Like, I can just tell the love that you guys have and that bond that you guys share.
Yeah, my mom remarried, and Joe became my stepdad, and then my mom ended up getting sick, and needed to take care of some stuff going on in her life, and so I ended up staying with Joe, and they had two daughters, two twins, Sarah and Allie, and
Yeah,
so I stayed with Joe and the girls, and it was huge. It was huge, huge for my path and huge for my journey. But yes, Joe doesn't. Couple things about Joe. Yeah, he doesn't take a pat on the back. He won't. He'll deflect any compliment you ever give him, and he thinks sensitivity and vulnerability is all soft and gooey. And but he is an amazing man. And it's so funny because there were, I don't know, years ago when I was much younger, you'd hear people say the saying, not your average Joe. And it's just true with him, or just your average Joe. Well, it's the opposite with Joe. He is beyond any average Joe.
for
And
sure.
but anybody and everybody that knows him knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Definitely. And you had some unfortunate news, in your childhood. Your mom ended up passing away at an early age. And so tell me what that was like for you when that took place.
So I'm still figuring it out. I'm still navigating through that relationship. I have the best. um when I think of my mom, and unfortunately she did pass when Whitney was pregnant with Jackson back in 2009, so they didn't get a chance to meet. But um, there is this memory that my mind flashes, and when I think of my mom or anybody talks about her or she's brought up in any way, and she taught me how to hug. She gave me the best hugs. I when I and I'm very, inviting and open to people I meet and things, and family and friends. And I carry that with me, since I had my family, been having babies and teaching them that you got to be able to give somebody a good hug. But that was
Right.
tough. It was tough. And, I always will keep my mom in the best light possible, but we definitely did have our run-ins, our tough times, her and I. She like I mentioned, she got sick. She got mentally and physically sick, and so she needed some serious care.
Right.
And the best thing I will say about that situation with my mom is that I didn't know it, but we talked I think a month and a half right before she passed away,
Yeah.
and right here in my driveway, right there, actually. And Whit was in the car, and Whit's pregnant, and my mom called just to see how Whit's feeling, and we ended up talking for like 20 minutes right there, and it was the clearest and most lucid my mom had been that I could remember since
Wow.
before she had gotten sick. And I got off the phone, I looked at Whit, and I was like, wow, like she did it. She did it. She got better. Like she did it all herself.
Right.
And I was like, I just remember the feeling I had and how proud I was of her,
Yeah.
despite everything that had happened, And then not too long after that, one morning I get a phone call from Allie, and she says that Bear found my mom, passed away from the night before. And oh, one thing I will say, and for all of for anybody that has still their connection to their parents,
Hmm.
like, don't be afraid to just get into some good conversation with them, because um for example, the fact that now I have 3 children and I'm going through on a daily basis as a father
Yeah.
what they gone through, and now you're seeing it from a different side instead of as from the side that's growing up and younger. I want to have so many more conversations
Yeah.
about that dynamic, but through the other eyes, just to see, just to hear, and just to hear about how I was as a kid,
Right.
and compare that to my own children. So dive in there, man. If anybody's got
Yeah.
that chance, dive in there.
Yeah.
And if they're in situations too where they don't talk anymore, that I've been there too. But if it ever resurrects and rekindles and is in an environment where people can really explore those areas with their own children, do that.
Yeah, man. You know, I had a similar situation growing up. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but my dad, he was in and out of my life for the majority of it. From I will say this, he was a terrific father until I was about age 8 when they split. And mental health is a real big thing. Come to find out, my father was abused as a child, um, mentally and physically, and it just took a toll on him, later on, and he wasn't able to deal and cope with things that would come into his life. And when my mom and he split up, that was the kind of thing that, like, took him down the wrong path. And he was in and out of my life for a really long time. And I went out to visit him, uh, maybe 5, 6 years ago, and I hadn't seen him in forever. Like, he could be walking down the street. I might not even know what he looks like, but we kind of look alike. So I might, but it was that long. It was that long ago.
Mm.
And so, we just sat there and talked. We just had open conversations. I spent 3, 4 days there, and I had no animosity. One thing is because my mom always held him in a positive light. So it was, I never felt like he was a bad person. He just went through some things, and my mom was mature enough, or thought I was mature enough, to handle some of the things that happened in his life, so I wouldn't hold that animosity. And so I really appreciate her to this day for
Mm.
doing that. And I'm so glad I went out to kind of hash any of the lingering issues. Right now, uh, I have no malice in my heart towards the man. I love him. We may not communicate that much, but I do care about him. He still hasn't seen my kids to this day, so that hurts me. And as they get older, and we all get older, I want him to come see them and know their grandfather. But it's just things like that. And for me, I always knew that, look, he whatever he had to go through was his process, but my kids will never go through that, ever,
Mm.
ever, ever, ever. And so, I could probably say the same thing for you. You just want to be a presence in their life, and the time that you get to spend with them, you're cherishing every moment. And I can just definitely tell that in your heart.
Absolutely, it's everything to me. I mentioned to you in our pre-meeting meeting that one of my dreams was, uh, growing up at a young age, was to have a family and do it the right way, not like the things I saw going on around me. Make sure that we got both parents in the house working together as a team,
Right.
consistently saying the right things, and loving the absolute hell out of our kids, but also showing them lessons that they need to understand, and understand that it's not going to be smooth and easy.
Right.
But
No,
that
the
was
the
important.
the upbringing for children is so important for the person that they could ultimately be. And if you have a bad childhood, a lot of people that have mental issues now, as they get older, had poor childhoods growing up.
Mhm,
And it's a
mhm.
it's a it's a it's an epidemic right now with mental illness.
Yep.
And it sounds like both of our parents went through that. But tell me a little bit about the safe haven. So, we both grew up in broken homes, but um, we were we've got the mindset where it's like, all right, well, this is something that is going on, but we're going to try to make the best out of it. So tell me about basketball being that safe haven for you.
Definitely. So Papa Joe put the ball in my hand, and in a way, maybe he was telling me, "Here, go get out of the house, go do this, give us some space or whatever." But it worked out for the best, I'd say, because um, I obviously was in a place at the time of 10, 11 years old, probably, well, looking back, very frustrated, very angry, not understanding why my mom's a little bit different than, and our relationship's a little bit different. You know, here's a wonderful new man into my life who I love, but I'm also just kind of naturally competitive with. You know, brand new sisters in the house. So I was at an age, and looking at my son right now at 10, you know, at the similar age where, you know, it was, I needed something. I needed something to absorb my energy and my frustration and feelings and emotions at the time. And luckily that became basketball. And I just, you know, hearing Kobe talk about some of the things, you know, before he passed away on his life experiences, and of course MJ, but the Kobe specifically, he said coming back from Europe, he was really with his parents when his dad retired. Finally, he was really mad. They took him away from everything he was familiar with in Italy, friends, school, you know, everything he didn't have at first, but created for himself in those years he was there. Then they rip it away from him, bring him back home, and now he described that he was just angry and full of rage. And this new kid in the school, you know, the basketball kid who challenged him, he was in for it. He was in for it.
Yeah.
And I think I can relate with the anger being put into the game, like and the emotion being put into it, because I and even up to this day, like I felt better not killing somebody on the court, right? But I just felt better being on the court and absolutely exerting myself in every possible way,
Wow.
and being just exhausted afterwards. I would seek that, and and that's one of the things that carried me to such a long career. Um, and funny, you know, growing up, I looked at Michael, and The Last Dance has been on, and they've been talking about him, specifically the weekend before, um, making up things to drive him, things that weren't even true, you know,
Yeah.
and just looking for challenges. And that was something I looked over to Wit when we were watching it. I laughed, and she said, "It's you," and that is something I did on a day-to-day basis. I would, whether it was early on in my career when I was young, and I would like pick fights with Wit in the house before I'd leave for the game, or, you know, I would walk into the coach's office mad about something, or something about a player said, you know, I would just look for any edge and create any sort of challenge to just stay engaged and just keep being mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so, you know, that is kind of the theme that you felt growing up, right? You thought you were always overlooked at every level, you know, whether that be made up or actual reality, I'm not really sure. But that was kind of the chip that really led you to have a really successful high school career. Tell me about that. You went to Bellarmine in San Jose, and you had a really good, stellar career.
Yeah, it was good. I would say early, yes, I was looked over. That wasn't made up. You know, there were some AAU programs just getting started in the Bay, and I never made them. I was never asked to be a part of them. And I saw the players around me, even some at my school was getting chosen.
Well,
And then, you know,
if Top Flight was around, we would have asked you to join for sure.
nice. I would have been probably begging you guys, man.
Oh no, we would have been
Um,
begging you.
but yeah, so I definitely put that on my shoulder and would use that anytime I stepped on the court, especially with or against those guys later on. But I did end up going to Bellarmine. It was a I didn't understand how amazing that time was until I got out of there, and moved on to college, and then after that. But it was an amazing, that 4 years really prepared me a lot for life and the court. But it was a struggle though. It was a struggle. I wasn't always happy there, and I was emotional. I was young. A lot of stuff was going on when I was 16, 17, with my mom and everything. So I wasn't in the most consistent mind frame.
Right.
But Papa Joe was there, keeping me focused in a lot of ways. And by my junior and senior year, I figured it out. with my coach, Coach Schneider, who's been there forever, I think our relationship really got better as I got onto those years. And his style was for sure hard to get used to
Yeah.
for me and a lot of players, and probably even to this day, for
Yeah.
sure, even to this day. But once you understand his scheme and you understand that he's not coaching your effort, you're out there playing like it's the last second on the clock every second, then then it blossoms. Then the relationship can blossom.
Right.
And and it was great. And he taught me so many things. Even to this day, I'm still learning every time I go back during the summers and I meet up with him and we talk. And if we're doing camps or if we're having sharing a meal or something, I constantly learn being around him. So
No, he's a phenomenal teacher. He's in the same league that I coach,
mhm.
obviously on the boys side, but I have the same respect and admiration for him. One thing that I've tried to do as a coach is just be more relational. When we were growing up, and I'm a few years younger than you, it was more transactional coaching. Meaning you do what the coach says and stuff like that. But now the kids want to know the why. Why are we forcing sideline and baseline, coach? Things like that, or why are we gonna blitz this on-ball screen or whatever it may be. And the second part of it is the relational piece, just getting to know them. So I don't know this for sure, but I would venture to guess that once he got to know you more, the relationship started to blossom, towards your junior and senior year, because like you mentioned, you had so much stuff going off the court at 16 years old. How do we handle that? And one way that we do handle that is, you mentioned it earlier, anger, or doing something that kind of defies the authority. And then later on, you look back at it and be like, man, you know, I should have been doing this. He was just only trying to help me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we did. As he definitely was aware of the things going on, I will say.
Yeah.
And I can't say looking back that I felt though that he was reaching, you know, I don't want to use the word coddle, because even if he was, it wouldn't be like he was coddling me, but that wasn't how I would say I felt, or his style in any ways. He was very stern and very, business, but he was aware. And when it wasn't basketball time, and because he was on campus,
Yeah.
he was there if you needed him too, in that regard. So
That's what I'm
um,
saying right there. Yeah.
that was big. And funny thing too about teachers, and you could probably relate to this, but we were all in those kids' shoes.
Yeah.
So even if they're not talking to us, even if they're not directly communicating with us, I think us as, if we're aware enough, let's just put it that way too, if we
Right.
are aware and in touch enough with the people we're around and dealing with, then we can get a pretty good feel of what's going on, if something needs more attention than
Right.
something else. And he was really good at that. He was really good at
No, you're spot on with that. We can definitely see the
that.
body language,
Yeah,
just the demeanor.
yeah.
You can tell when the kids are upset, just like it's similar to when your wife's upset or something like that. You kind of know what's wrong. Nothing. But no, man, it's a coaching and teaching is such a beautiful thing, and it's so complicated at the same time. You've got to not only know the game, but really more about just maneuvering the different situations that happen in life, and basically being a psychologist. So as you're teaching your kids how to cross the street.
Yep.
But anyway, you talk about your college career a little bit. You went to junior college for 1 year. Uh, you, you could probably use that as your motivation once again. And yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I will say I wasn't recruited coming out of high school, so that already made me mad.
Yeah.
I was going to be able to use that immediately.
Mhm.
And then one school was Sonoma State was the only one Division II school. Northern California was the only one recruiting me, and so I took that opportunity, and like I just said, I found even more motivation there as being a freshman and not supposed to play a lot, and things like that. I just used it all as motivation. Was able to have a great freshman year. I believe, if I'm saying this right, I was a freshman All-American, and 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 then after the season was done, Papa Joe said, "You interested in playing D1?" And I was like, I didn't really think about it, and I did have a great year there, and it was nothing against them at all. I think it was just that I wanted to try.
Right.
I did. I lived up to the challenges I gave myself, and so I said, why not? And so I went to West Valley, played for the legendary Bob Burton, and had a good year, a disappointing finish, but a good year, and then was able to get to Portland State and spend 2 years there. I actually had 4 college coaches in 4 years, so I
Wow.
was I was I was ready for a yearly change. The yearly changes that were coming after that.
What was the major difference between Division I and Division II? Because so many people get caught up about, I need to go Division I, I need to go Division
Mm,
One, but
yeah,
they don't know that D2 is still no joke. Like
it's
you gotta put in work, the same amount of work. And I would just say, from my experience of doing this for 16 years now, the skill level is pretty much the same, unless you're really elite, obviously. But it's just the length and the height that is the major difference, and just the sheer strength. But other than that, but you tell me your experience.
Oh, I would say that that's all true. I would say there's a little bit of IQ difference. There was a little bit of even mental stability.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
might have this incredible player who's 6'6", who can guard anybody on the floor, right? Can do anything with the ball, but for some reason, when that instigator on the other team gets put in the game and kind of gives him a little nudge with his elbow and his hip, and then that kid freaks out and been known to freak out because that's his rap sheet,
Right.
then a kid like that might fall to being somewhere where um, he might not have to be. But I think that there's certain things about the game, the way players see it, that kind of divide that line as well between D2 and D1. Just for example, a guy on the weak side, let's say there's a ball's on one wing, and then you have a weak side post player,
Yep.
and then you have a weak side wing. And so that weak side post player sees the weak side wing's defender, being a good help defender and sagging in the key. But, sometimes those players that can kind of see that and adjust and improvise on the fly, and that big weak side post player just now sets a flare screen
Pins him
so that
down,
it's
and yeah.
just an easy skip and catch and shoot.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
Seeing angles, communicating, just being a good communicator, just being a good daily communicator in drills, one-on-ones, twos on twos, threes, all the way to 5-on-5s. A guy that's willing to get in the gym and willing to talk can be the difference between a D2 and a D1 guy.
Right.
Um, so I think that the IQ would be, in my opinion, the biggest difference.
It's a great point. Great point for
Yeah.
young kids that are listening to their parents that may not understand, as my kid, Division I, Division II, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, you just want to get them in the best situation. It was a great situation for you to go to that level, seeing that you can play at that level, excel, and then try something a little bit different when you knew that you can compete and play at a high level at the Division II level. Because like you said, your mentality was like, no, I can do this. And you obviously showed it. You had a really good career at Portland State. I think you shot 94% from free throw line in your
Yep.
career there.
Well, my senior year, I would think I was 93 or 94%. Yep, from the free throw line. I think
Wow.
I only was there for 2 years, and I don't think I got up in a lot of attempts compared to 4-year guys, but at least at the moment, I had enough to keep me like in the top 1 or 2 all time free throw percentage there. So that was pretty cool.
And you were a deadly shooter. That's one of the things that you've really made your staple on at every single level. Tell the listeners what you did to become such a terrific, phenomenal shooter. Like I said, you're in the Guinness Book of World Records for continuously made threes in a game.
I just shot. I was 10, 11 years old, seeing that there was loud noise from the house, maybe not always the most positive type stuff. And so I was just, I'm going to get out here with this ball and go shoot.
Wow.
And I would get lost in it. And I would put myself in any spot on the floor, at least that I could in our tiny driveway back then. I would recreate situations in my head, who's guarding me, who, what they're doing on me, and where their hands are, if they're off their feet, if their hands are down, so I would just, my imagination would just take me. And that that type of thing followed me all through middle school, up through high school. I'd have practice, maybe even something in the morning that day. I'd come home, my homework would be done. Papa Joe, can I go to the park? I'm gonna run down to the park, get some more shots up. There was nights there where I just would be, after practice, after the whole day of school, out there for a couple hours. I remember a funny story. I would take my disc player at the time. We didn't have no iPods, no
A
nothing,
disc
right?
man, yeah.
It was a disc man, and I didn't have a watch or anything. And I would use the timer on the front to time me. And back then, at that time, suicides weren't really. I had already known what a suicide was, but the amount of suicides in a period of time was becoming new, like timing them.
Yeah.
And so one of the things at Bellarmine was 20 suicides in 20 minutes. And so I was trash at it at first. Like, I really wasn't sharp, and I wasn't, where I wanted to be. And so I was out there the nighttime running suicides over at the park with my disc player, timing it to make sure I got it in the right time and that I left in the right time.
Wow.
And so but that type of that type of willingness, when a young player has to do that, just is willing to do that by himself, that is noticeable. I'm not necessarily, I mean, at some point, as you know, we're all going to be able to go between our legs. We're all going to be able to go behind our backs. We're all going to be able to, do these very, very cool things that kids are able to do nowadays. But I think you mentioned, what is transferring to the game.
Right.
And so, as a young kid, don't get caught up in worry about your body and worry about your shape before you
Right.
start worrying how to do a between the legs 3 times in a row. Let's
Right.
make sure you do one really good, and then you do it with a defender on you, then you do it with a help defender, and then you do it with a teammate, so that you're being really efficient.
Right.
But yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And you just have to really work at whatever it is that you want to do. And if we're talking basketball, that means you have to shoot a lot, a lot, a lot. In your workouts now, if you were to shoot 100 shots, how many are you going to make? I
I'm
would
gonna
say
make
about 90, 95.
So this is a consistent thing that I like to do. I like to judge myself and people that I've trained and stuff. But if you're gonna take 10 shots, you got to at least be getting 7, at least from.
For sure.
If you're shooting anywhere inside the key or doing layups, then you
If
don't even give
nobody's
yourself
on
a
you,
miss. Yes,
if nobody's on you,
if
for
nobody's
sure.
on you, and if you're hitting 7, then you move it up to 8, right?
Right.
But yeah, if I'm gonna and if you do it to 100, you got to make 70. But if I was out shooting right now, I would give you 70, Chris. I would give you at least 70 for 100. I have faith in that.
I know for a fact you give me more than 70.
But I'm gonna mix it up too. I'm not just gonna give you, those 15-foot nice and easy jumpers. I'm gonna go mid range. I'm gonna go off the dribble, and then I'm gonna do some threes, and then we're gonna step it back to some deep threes. And I have faith I'm gonna give you 70 out of all that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that would be the mark that I try to tell kids. If you're making 70% with nobody guarding you, you're going to knock off 20, 30% when somebody is going to guard you. So, that's the number you kind of want to hit. But a lot of kids, they just shoot, but they don't shoot game speed.
No.
And that is the killer. I mean, if you're catching and winding up like this,
it's not comparable.
Yeah.
You're not getting better doing that. And then the other thing is, now that you brought that up, you know, there's like a gun in every gym, you know, the ball rebounder and the pass back out to you. And I have worked on the gun. I do drills on the gun that I like, but I don't prefer the gun. I don't think the gun, if you're standing there catching and shooting, just standing in one spot, catching and shooting on the gun, you're not preparing yourself at all for anything, unless you've been designated by whoever your coach or trainer is, and you're making some adjustments on your elbow or shot, something that you need to fill out for a little bit while your coach or trainer is talking. I can maybe understand that. But anybody standing for 2 hours on a gun, catching and shooting and getting a sweat that way is not getting better.
Right.
And along with one more thing that you said about the shooting, when you just step into a gym, and I know you've seen this, right? And I see it in men's
I already know where
all
you're
the
going.
time.
Start shooting threes.
The centers go to the 3-point line, and the guards, for some reason, go further out from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And that's immediately where they go when they step into the gym. And that's absolutely wrong, because you're going to be working and depending on parts of your body that when you're warm and lathered up and in a game at that speed and quick twitch, portion of it, that's not training anything for that. You're giving yourself bad habits by doing that. So shooting to warm up, no, warm up to shoot. Right. And I've actually, there's been many times where I don't touch a ball because I spend the early time that I get to the gym, I do my warm up, put in that little bit extra time to warm every part of my body up, so that when I touch a ball, I'm already sweating, I'm already loose, I'm already ready to get in a defensive stance or triple threat at any point, at any time. And that's really all you need to be warm. And then your body and your habits, as long as you put in the right work, will take over after that.
Yeah, well, that just goes to show you that you're a professional, and that's the difference between, somebody making it to the Division I level. That's the difference between somebody making it pro and having longevity at those places and remaining consistent. The biggest thing that I see is, can you be consistent? And the great ones can be consistent for a long period of time. I looked at your numbers, professional. You averaged like about 15 points your whole career, if I'm not mistaken, even from college. But that number was never dropping. You were always going to be right here, consistent. And that's what coaches love. That's what relationships love, being consistent. The talk about our two situations are my father, your mother weren't consistent. And look what it does to a family, so that consistency is so key. And just hearing you talk about those little minor details, getting in a defensive stance, getting your whole body warm, it just resonates so much with me, and I just really appreciate that perspective. Wrapping up here, you're a bucket getter at any level, but you also have some off the court buckets. Tell me, the relationship that you have with your wife, she's an amazing woman, Whitney is, to be by your side for those 16 years plus, I think. How long have you guys been married now?
It will be 15 this June.
And you guys met in college. So, tell me what that's like, because she has to be an incredible person to just support you for so long.
As Papa Joe would say, credible person to put up and deal with all of the stuff she's had to deal with through me. But
he wouldn't put it that way, but yeah, I get you.
but I still don't believe it. I still don't believe that, like, I have her, I don't believe, like, things are going too fast, Chris. And like I look at my 3 little ones, and I look at her like, dang, like, we did that. Like, we've done that. We're doing that, and this goes back to, to me as a young boy, but I just asked, like, why did you choose to, I laugh about it with her, and she just, brushes me off. But I'm grateful every day. I mean, my dream, like I mentioned, as a kid, as a young kid, when I don't think kids usually have these dreams, but my dream was to have a family and be a professional basketball player. And Whitney uh, Whitney gave me that gift. I mean, I had it as a young kid, and I put in a lot of hours and work for it. But when I met her, I mean, she became everything. And then on top of that, she was willing to take my dream with her, you know. And I'm the luckiest man in the world because of that. And she didn't bat an eye about it, And along the way, when we've gone through the ups and the downs specifically, like, there's never, I mean, I'm just the luckiest man ever that I got someone that wants to fight with me, and someone that wants to,
I love it.
go through crappy times. Like, actually, it's okay. We're going to be all right no matter what. And I still don't believe it that I get that.
Yeah.
But, like, everybody's goal, if you want to call it, mine, right? Being a basketball player, yours, when you're a kid, NBA, right? NBA is the highest level.
Everybody,
That's my dream, right?
for sure.
And I'm so lucky that I get to say that, on my own scale, I got to live and get to live my NBA every day, because of, in large part, because of her. And not to mention right now, I mean, a little bit more, but, because the next step I wanted to take, coaching wise, it didn't work out in my favor, and that's okay. And we're going to be just fine. But because of that, my wife said, I got you, babe. Don't worry. Let me go get this full-time job, and we're going to be okay. Uh, she's one of one.
That's beautiful, man. I love it. And lastly, let's touch on you have twin sisters, Sarah and Allie, and ironically, everybody in your family is involved with basketball. They're both coaches, and Allie is a ref, and Sarah coaches at Los Gatos. So tell me about them and your relationship with them.
They're my sisters. I played. They were so important to me growing up. Like, I finally got a chance to be a big brother. And I took such joy and pride in being able to take care of them during some of those tough parts when the house was unstable. And we have a bond that I believe that is just so tight and so close and so forever and so into eternity that, I at least I hope they would say the same thing. But
I know they
they
would.
they are they the they I would be willing to bet that they don't know how much I love them. They would like to tell everybody that they do, but they're amazing, and I'm so proud of them and the things they've done. Um, yeah, and
Well,
they've been through some stuff.
they'll definitely know now,
Yeah.
since you're putting it out there, and I know they'll appreciate it. But man, I appreciate you, man. This was an awesome conversation. Just getting to some real stuff, some real items, man. And hopefully it helps other people. I know it's therapeutic for probably us to just get things off of our chest, and really appreciate your story. Uh, Terrific basketball career. You're going to be even better with your endeavors now, and you're such an awesome dad and a husband. But I just really appreciate the man that you are, and keep doing what you're doing. And when this is over, I'll come up and visit, and definitely got to hit the Nike store
Yes,
when
sir.
when we can get back, because I know your wife works there too. So
Yeah, I appreciate all that a
good
lot.
deal, brother. Well, thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.